A woman obligated in the mitzvah of Kiddush. So the Gemara tells us in Brachas and Daf Chaf Amud Beis, Nashim chayavos bekiddush hayom dvar Torah. A woman is obligated in the mitzvah of Kiddush Friday night, min ha-Torah. The same as men. Zachar Ashom HaShabbos L'Kadsho. That we have a biblical obligation to sanctify Shabbos through Kiddush. Machlok is Rambam and Ramban, whether the emphasis is on the Zachar or the L'Kadsho, but whatever the mitzvah is, it's the mitzvah in our Torah, and women are obligated. Isn't it a mitzvah saseh shazman grama? Isn't it a time-oriented mitzvah? And hence women should be exempt. So comes along the Gemara and says, Kol sheyeshnu b'shmira, yeshnu b'zechira. Whoever's included in the prohibition of keeping Shabbos is also obligated in the positive commandment of sanctifying Shabbos and making Kiddush. And therefore, the Gemara says, women have to keep Shabbos, they're also chayav in Kiddush. We find a similar drasha in the Gemara regarding women's obligation on Pesach of eating matzah. Again, we assume women are obligated in the biblical mitzvah of eating matzah leil Pesach. So the question is, it's a mitzvah saseh shahazman grama. It's a time-oriented mitzvah. The Gemara answers, Kol sheyeshnu b'bal tocha chametz, yeshnu b'kumol matzah. Whoever is included in the prohibition of not eating chametz is included in the positive mitzvah of eating matzah. So again, the same type of drasha that tells us, even though I would have thought it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama, nevertheless, whoever is Kol sheyeshnu b'bal tocha chametz or Kol sheyeshnu b'shmira Shabbos, yeshnu b'zechira Shabbos. So women are obligated min ha-Torah matzah, and in our topic, women are obligated min ha-Torah in the mitzvah of Kiddush. So that leads to Noda b'Yehuda, the Duggal Me'Ravava, to ask a famous question. He asks, the general practice is, even less now, but it's still the general practice, that the men go to shul Friday night and daven, and the women stay home and don't daven. It's not a matter of going to shul or not. And generally speaking, a lot more women who daven now, but still less than men. So let's assume the Duggal Merava's assumption that the men daven Ma'ariv and the women don't. Right? So what does that have to do with Kiddush? So the Magen Avraham writes a Kiddush lahalacha, and we seem to assume that way, that how does one fulfill the mitzvah min ha-Torah of Kiddush? So in general, there's a machlokas rishonim. The Rambam's opinion is Kiddush b'dvarim is min ha-Torah. Kiddush with words alone. You give praise of the Shabbos, you say the words of Shabbos, that's enough that you chayav min ha-Torah. You fulfill your mitzvah min ha-Torah. Tosas and Psachim in other places, Tosas and Nazir, quotes two different sheets. One opinion is no, that making it over cup of wine is deraisa, but you don't have to drink it min ha-Torah. And the third opinion is even drinking it's min ha-Torah. We paskin like the Rambam that Kiddush is min ha-Torah with words alone. In fact, that's what how does the Magen Avraham prove it? He says what happens. It's coming up this year, or next year, depending how you look at it. When Yom Kippur Shachol b'Shabbos, when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, so what do we do Friday night? Where's the Kiddush? So that's a whole discussion whether is an Or Sameach, whether you're chayiv in Kiddush or not, but Pashas is, it's still, even though it's Yom Kippur, it's Friday night, you're chayiv in Kiddush. So, how do we fulfill our mitzvah? Obviously you can't drink wine. So we see by davening Shmona Esrei Yom Kippur night, we fulfill our mitzvah of Kiddush. So the Magen Avraham writes, if it's good enough when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, that means that's true all year round. And all year round, when we make the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh HaShabbos, when we daven Friday night Shmona Esrei, we fulfill our mitzvah minat Torah of Kiddush. So, in fact, it's a further machlokas hamavarach sarach sheyito midrabanan. So we paskin midrabanan, the one who makes Kiddush should drink the appropriate amount of rov revius. If he can't drink it, he should give it to one other person should drink the requisite amount. And if that person can't drink it, at least shtiyas kula mitzdarfen, at least give everyone the shot glass. And the combination of everyone drinking, you could fulfill your mitzvah of Kiddush. But either way, when you daven, we're saying, the Rambam writes, Kiddush b'dvarim is min HaTorah. The Magen Avraham extends it based on the Rambam. Well, one davens Friday night and says, Baruch Atah Hashem, Mekadesh HaShabbos, one fulfills the mitzvah min HaTorah of Kiddush. So comes along the Dogel Marav and says, if men go to shul and daven, and women don't daven, so what's going to happen? The man already fulfilled his mitzvah of Kiddush in davening, so he's only obligated midrabanan, Kiddush al hayayin, and the woman who's not daven yet still chayiv min haTorah in Kiddush. And we have a general rule: someone who's only obligated midrabanan rabbinically cannot do a mitzvah for someone who's obligated biblically. The concept of Arevis, of Kol Yisrael Revim Zelazeh, you have to be on the same level. Or at least you could be higher, but you can't be lower. So if I'm obligated minat Torah and you're only midrabanan, so it's not a problem. You could be included in my mitzvah. But if I'm pater minat Torah, I'm only obligated midrabanan, I can't do a mitzvah for you that is minat, that you're in a higher level obligation than me. So how in the world do we explain the minhag ha'olam that men come home and they make Kiddush for their wives? So the Dogel Mavara suggests that let's not just talk about it, do it. He recommends women should daven Friday night. And therefore, if women daven Friday night, therefore they also fulfill their mitzvah Torah. Some point out when they do the Hadlakas Neiros, the candles, they say a little Yehi Ratzon, they mention special praise of Shabbos, etc., to fulfill their mitzvah. So that's what he recommends. And in fact, it's probably not a bad idea anyway. Even though generally speaking, the Mishnah tells us, Noshem achayavas b'tfilah, women are obligated in tfilah, the question is how much? Does a moda'ani cut it, or you need at least one Shemona Esrei? Is it Shacharis and Mincha? So many have a minhag. They Shacharis and Mincha, they daven, because those are zachovas. But since Arvis is a Rishus, even though men have taken it upon themselves as a chova, women have not. And therefore, again, every place is different, but there are many who daven Shacharis and Mincha, not Ma'ariv. So even though, because Tfilas Arv is Rishus, however, based on the Pri Megadin and the Ramban, so maybe there's a reason why Friday night Ma'ariv should be different, even if you're going to have the minhag of not to daven Ma'ariv all week long, perhaps based on the Ramban, Mikroi Kodesh, Krui Eida, that there's mitzvah min Torah to daven on Shabbos, and Tfilah B'tzibor perhaps. So therefore, it would be another reason for a woman to, besides the eights of the Dagul Merivava, to avoid the Kiddush dilemma. You might be fulfilling a mitzvah min Torah of davening Friday night. So either way, that's what the Dagul Merivava suggests. That if a woman davens, so you level the playing field, and therefore both are chayev midrabanan in Kiddush. So now you come home and the husband makes Kiddush for the wife. So that's the Dugum or Rabba's Eitzah. We'll just give one more now and then we'll continue, but there's a famous Chasam Sofer. The Mishnah Berurah quotes the Chasam Sofer. We have a general rule throughout Shas, or it's a Machokes in Shas, a Machokes in the Gemara, whether mitzvahs srichas kavana. The mitzvahs require intent on that. So what do you mean? To those who say you don't need intent, I'm about to put on my talit, my tefillin in the morning. Make sure you don't have kavana. No one says that. This is a post-facto legal machloket. Everyone agrees before you do the mitzvah, you have to have kavana. If you come to me and say, do I have to have kavana when I put on my talit? Of course I'll say yes, you have to. It's not an option. But if you come to me afterwards and say, I already put on my talit and tefillin, I didn't have the requisite kavana, so that's the question, whether mitzvah strichas kavana or mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana. So it's machokas in the Gemara, an apparent stira in the Rambam, the Rabbeinu Yonah, many Rishonim discuss it. So with halacha, we seem to go with the compromise. The Magen Avraham brings down from the Radbaz that on a mitzvah min Torah we say mitzvah tzrichas kavana. On a mitzvah midrabanan we say mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana. That's how some explain the Machaber. Because in Hilchas Kriya Shema, he seems to paskin mitzvah tzrichas kavana. But Sfiras Omer, he writes, one should be strict not to mention the night of Sfira before you count. You should say yesterday it was day 20. So the question is, what is he worried about? Apparently, he's concerned if you say the date, even though you not really have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah, apparently mitzvahs ain't strichas kavana. So that's how some explain it's not a kasha. Because Kriya Shema is daraisa, so mitzvah strichas kavana. Sfiras Omer is a machokas rishonim, but apparently based on this diak from the Machaber, he seems to say Sfiras Omer is d'Rabbanan, and therefore one has to be careful not to mention yesterday's date. Of course, maybe it's just saying Chumrah, but either way, whether that's the pshat in the Machaber or not, that's the way it's brought out in the poskim. On a mitzvah min Torah we're strict, on a mitzvah midrabanan we are lenient. So comes along the Chasam Sofer and says that when one davens Friday night davening Shmona Esrei, and you make the bracha and you say Baruch Atah Hashem HaKadosh HaShabbos, you should have negative kavana. You should have negative kavana not to fulfill your mitzvah of Kiddush, only to fulfill your mitzvah of Tefillah, because even according to different Rishonim who say mitzvahs eino tzrichas kavana, the mitzvahs do not require kavana, but that's only, so if you're neutral, so then you could be yote, but if you have kavana, or hefech, if you dafka have a mind, I don't want to fulfill my mitzvah, so that helps. So the Chasam Sofer writes, since Kiddush, as we mentioned, the Torah tells us Zochar Yom HaShabbos Lo Kodsho. Minimally speaking, it's a mitzvah min Torah L'Kadesh B'Dvarim. It's a biblical mitzvah to say Kiddush with words. So therefore, mitzvah strichas kavana, and therefore I say most people don't even know, aren't even aware that you can fulfill your mitzvah of Kiddush in davening, so it's not even an issue. But for those who know that according to the Magen Avraham, you could be yotze your mitzvah of Kiddush with words alone, and therefore when you say Baruch Atah Hashem HaKadosh HaShabbos, you might be able, according to the Magen Avraham, you'll fulfill your mitzvah of Kiddush, and then you're going to have a problem going home and making Kiddush for your wife. So therefore the Chasam Sofer suggests mitzvahs eino tzrichas kavana, have negative kavana, and therefore you should be yotze.